By and by, I'm going to see the king. By and by, I'm going to see the king. By and by, I'm going to see the king. Oh, I don't mind dying for the child.
So I'm Jennifer Chalmers. I am happy to be hosting this, though I would have much rather hosted it in person at the Oakwood Chapel a month or so ago. Seems like forever. But this is what we can do. So here we are, and I'm really excited about this book. So as you all may have also be in the same position, I've been reading Michael Corcoran's writings about music for as long as I've been visiting or living in Austin. And sometimes the way he cares about music and songs and the details and why somebody's talent matters has made me care about them too. And then I go discover them, and then it's kind of like this shared passion. So it's been really fun over the years to get slightly more acquainted with Michael Corcoran, and then to have the opportunity to work with him on learning more about Austin's music history and Texas music history in preparing for this digital exhibit. So what I do now is curate programming at the Oakwood Cemetery Chapel. And for those of you who don't know, a few of you do, the Oakwood Cemetery is Austin's oldest municipal cemetery, and it was founded in 1849. And just last year, we opened it to the public as a visitor center. And so what I do is talk about the meaning of life in Texas history through the context of the people buried at Oakwood. So we create digital histories and stories about all the people buried there, and then how that relates to our contemporary Austin culture, because our original residents and settlers had opinions and attitudes and characters that created their own communities and culture that then attracted more people to it and grew to who we are today. So with that, these digital histories, I do one big program every quarter of a year, and this one's called To Hear. And a little later, I'll post in the chat box the link to that exhibit if you care to go look at it. We profile Ernie Mae Crafton Miller and Gene Ramey, one of the jazz musicians listed here. We profile Alan and John Lomax. We profile the Gant family and several others. And it's just really fun to have read this book and keep cross-referencing and adding to the knowledge of this history from Michael's research as well. So it's a real pleasure. So Michael, for those who don't already know you super well, because I imagine most everybody does, can you say hello?
Hello. This is Michael Corcoran coming from North Campus.
Cool. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how this particular book came to be?
Yeah, well, I had a book in 2017 called True Heroes of Texas Music.
Uh-huh.
And this book was kind of a sequel to it. It's the same idea where I just basically research and learn about people that are not well known, but should be better known, basically. And so for this book, though, I didn't want it to look just like the last one. He's just doing the same thing. So I had to figure out some way to switch it up and make it different. And around the same time, Tim was doing these civil rights portraits. What's the baseball player?
Willie Wells.
Willie Wells, yeah. He did a mural in South Austin on Willie Wells, and Hound Dog Taylor was a really good one. I kept seeing these on Facebook, and around the same time, the city group,
The Red River something. I don't know what it's Red River something. I can't remember.
Yeah, so Meredith Powell was the woman's name who contacted me and said, "Do you want to?" Tim Kerr's doing a mural, and it's basically going to be a history of Red River on the side of a building. So, can you write a history of Red River? So I said, "Sure." And then I did the research, and then Tim just wrote it all out in one big long scroll on the side of Elysium. And then about a month or two later, they had another idea for us to do some undiscovered Texas music, Austin music people. And so we did that on the back of Ninth Street.
They originally what happened was they wanted me to do a mural down at Red River, and so they started showing me walls, And
Yeah, I have to.
the first wall that they showed me was that corrugated one I wrote on. And then they showed me some other ones, and the corrugated one just looked so great. It was like, because I do a lot of street photography and things like that too. So I just thought, man, that wall's great. Why don't we just write on it? Let's don't put a picture. Let's just write on that wall. And so then I think that's when they got a hold of Michael to say, well, let's do a history. And so he wrote, and then I kind of added in and put stuff in too and everything. And then they thought that was really great, but they still wanted me to do portraits. But they wanted Stevie Ray Vaughan, Joe Ely, that same, which is great. They should be part of it. But my biggest pet peeve, which I think we talked about when I was at the church, is that when people say Texas music, they only talk about that. They don't talk about Ornette Coleman. They don't talk about Butthole Surfers. They don't talk about, it's just that one little group, which obviously should be represented, but it just drives me crazy because it's like there's so much more. There's Archie Bell. There's so much more. And so I told them, I just kind of politely declined. And I said, there's a lot of art people here that do murals that could probably use this money. Why don't you just do them, because I don't really want to add to that conversation anymore. And I said, but you know what? If you want to do a bunch of people that nobody's really knows about or haven't heard about or talk about or whatever, then yeah, I'll do that, kind of thing. So then they got a hold of Michael again, and so that's when we did this thing. So
yeah, and so it was really good. Tim's like the easiest person in the world to work with. He does what he says he's going to do when he does it, and I had such a good time working with him on that. I just thought when I started doing the book, I thought, let me just have Tim do all the illustrations. And this is a couple of reasons, not just because I like Tim's stuff and his passion, but also it's a real pain in the ass to get permission for photographs. In my first book, that was the worst thing I had to do, is every single picture I used, I had to get permission. And I had to pay some people and, some organizations. So this time I thought, let's make it more like an art book, oversized, hardback art book. And it really worked though, because I think this book, you couldn't even tell it's the same idea as the previous book. It looks so different. The production's so different. TCU Press did a great job.
They really did. It looks great. So
when I first got the book in my hands, I was like blown away. I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize it'd be this good. Like everything, I've been doing this a long time, and usually the finished product is usually a little bit disappointing. This far surpassed everything I thought of. And also there was one thing, it was the last day, we were shooting for South by Southwest. We had a deadline, a strict deadline. It was the last Friday of January. And we had a different cover. We had everything ready to go. And in the afternoon, Friday afternoon, they said, we decided to change the cover. We're going to Tim had one horizontal painting, and it was a Rupert Neve. And we wanted to have a wraparound painting, so we wanted to have that be the cover. And then my instinct was to go, no, you can't do that. First of all, he's not a Texan. Rupert Neve is a 94-year-old guy from England who basically invented the console. He's a big audio guy. And I said, well, he's not a Texan, he's not a musician. And I said, well, if we don't do it now, we're gonna miss the deadline. You're not gonna be booked for South by Southwest. And so I showed a friend of mine the two covers, the one we were gonna use originally, and the one they ended up using. And she said, no, the Rupert Neve cover is better. And I looked at it and I said, okay, fine, let's go with it. And it really turned out to be the right decision. And when I talked to Tim about it, he had the same concern I did. Like, this doesn't really represent the book. We have a lot of stories about, gospel pioneers, country western people, folk people. And, but the idea I thought was that Ghost Notes is an audio term.
My background is in art, and so one of the most beautiful things I find about portraits is that they're kind of like solving a mystery. And so your biographies about the people with Tim's illustrations are like a fully three-dimensional portrait that solve the mystery of who somebody is and why they matter. And Tim's work just completely changed for me once I saw it in the context of the book. So one of the cool things about Rupert Neve was that I was like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
why is he on the cover? Until I read it. And then I was like, oh, I saw that documentary. Oh my God, and he lives in work. Like, it was like this beautiful full circle coming around of storytelling that really, really needed the illustrations. So I just wanted to say, Tim, this book wouldn't be this book without your artwork.
Oh man, thank you.
Really,
No, it's definitely
Thank you so much.
it's a true collaboration in every way. I mean,
You know, it's funny. It's funny because Michael said to me when they were going to do Rupert Neve as the cover, he was like, "Well, nobody really knows who this is." And I said, "Well, if you engineer or you record or you're anything, yeah, you know who this is." I said, "People are going to know if they know." So, but it turned out cool. I was really happy, and thank you for the compliments.
And Rupert Neve is still alive too. He's one of the few people in the book. He's 94 years old and lives in Wimberley. So yeah, everybody else has been gone, 50, 60 years mostly. But I like to do research on people that are that you can't talk to, because a lot of times the people that you interview that are still alive, they fill you up with so much bullshit. They kind of overemphasize their importance. I'd rather just listen to the music and then do the research and figure out their importance, within myself without. I had an example like that with the singer for the Soul Stirrers, Rebert Harris, in the first book, and he passed away, but I got a tape of him in an interview, and he just he claimed all this stuff that was just, he was trying to make up for being overlooked all these years, and that's what happens a lot of times with obscure people. When you do talk to them, they've been obscure for 40 years. This is their chance to tell you everything that they've done, and sometimes they overdo it. So I think that just doing research on people that have been long gone is really my calling, I think, rather than talking to people. I put together a little slideshow to show on the TV screen, as a loop, and that's what this is.
all right. So can you see it?
Yeah, I can.
And these are the black and white. This is how the paintings usually start. You want to talk about that, Tim?
Yeah, when I do stuff, I start out with drawings, and and then I keep my drawing, and then I might do it a bunch of different times if I really like it, but it never ever really comes out exactly the same, because I kind of just loosely, go from what I originally did. So, but that's what they are. So.
I love that Gil Askey one. That's one of my favorite drawings that you did.
Oh, cool! Thanks.
And
I
also
like this one. This is the one I like a bunch. Yeah.
B.L. Joyce, the
her, and I really like her a whole lot too.
Sippy Wallace, Rocky Erickson, young Rocky. There's Amos Milburn, Sonny Curtis. These are all have chapters in the book. Blind Willie Johnson. There's a DOC, our rap representative. John A. Lomax, whose grave Jennifer's standing in front of. There's Rupert Neve. And so these are all in color in the book. I mean, not all of them. Like the Kenny Dorham one. Some of them are black and white, and it's a bad reproduction, but I love that one.
Well, thanks.
And there's the original cover. Tim did the drawing, but they did the color, and they thought that the color did not represent Tim's color. This is the Larkin group. Flacco and Dennis far left. There's Buddy Holly with Sonny Curtis. Rupert Neve, young Rupert. That's Sweet Home Baptist Church in Clarksville. And there's Tim and his family. I don't know if that's the one from the book. Is that the one from the book?
That's the one. Sandy took that. That was, I can't remember what that was for. It might have, I don't remember. It was for something. No, you know what it was for? The Chronicle. The Chronicle finally did a story on me, which I thought was pretty hilarious, because it was like, what, did I die? Like, what's happened? Like, I'm not doing anything different. Like, why do you want to talk now? Kind of thing. And
right.
They did a story, and so Sandy came over, who took all the pictures of the art that's in the book and took that back then. So.
Yeah, that's the kind of the rule. If you stick around Austin long enough, eventually the Chronicle will do a cover story on you. I think every band in town's got a Chronicle cover story, and a dame named after him too. But I know Tim. I met Tim in 1984 when I first moved to town. Maybe my first week in town, I met Tim. He worked at Recycle Records, 2712 Guadalupe. And we were looking for a tattoo shop, me and my friend Rollo. And Tim said, well, we're moving out of the record store. You can just take over our lease. Or I can't remember the whole terms, whatever. They moved over to 34th in Guadalupe.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So I met Tim, and Tim was in the Big Boys. He was in Poison 13. I was a music critic for the Statesman. I mean, not Statesman. I was a Chronicle back then. And he was just in all these bands and a musician, but we weren't friends at all. I mean, I get the feeling he didn't really respect what I did because I was a music critic.
I thought some of it was pretty great and pretty funny, and then sometimes it pissed me off. And
well,
that's good. That's what you should be doing. So.
Yeah. Well, my very first column, I talked about how the Big Boys hated each other. It was supposed to be a secret, I guess. But I mean, Biscuit was wanting to beat me up, you know, and it was my very first column I ever wrote for the Chronicle. I had people wanting to beat me up.
Well, we didn't really hate each other. It's just that it was like when you go on to, if you're in a band, if you go on tour for more than 3 weeks, it's like being in that station wagon with your family, and here's all the brothers in the back seat, and you're basically going, don't you cross this line right here, and the other person's sticking their little finger over it, and it gets to a point where you just really need to take a break. And that's what happened with us. We really needed to take a break, and then it just kind of turned into we never got back together and stuff.
Those are 4 really strong personalities.
Yeah.
Big Boy. That's when you had Ray Washam on drums too, I think.
Yeah.
But it was just you had a new record coming out, and I think it was two guys didn't get along in the band.
It's like 83 or 84 or something. Yeah. Well, Biscuit was mad at Chris because Chris had like screened off a bunch of T-shirts that had some of Biscuit's art on it, and you know, and I kind of thought, well, you did all that work, keep the money. And I think Biscuit thought that we should all get the money. I don't know what it's been so long. It's like,
but anyway, so we're keeping kind of cross purposes. I mean, Tim's a punk rocker. I was a music critic. You know, those two don't get along generally. I always had respect for him, and I liked all his bands. You know, Bad Mother Goose. You know, you go there, and every beautiful girl in the state of Texas would be there at those gigs. You know, it was fun. The first time I ever saw Fugazi, they opened for Bad Mother Goose at Liberty Lunch. And, you know, it was cool. The music scene in the 80s was, you know, we both came from that. And it was pretty cool. But I always explain to people, like, the difference between me and Tim is that Tim, on the bottom of his painting, sometimes he'll write, your name here. That's all he'll sign it, your name here. And my way of thinking is my name bigger.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more like always promoting myself, sort of, and Tim doesn't really do that. It's more like.
Also with me, the whole idea when all the art stuff started back up, because I was always doing art through all of this stuff. I just wasn't painting really big anymore and stuff. And when this all started back up, I don't know what now, like 11, 12, 13 years ago or whatever, and I realized I had to sign stuff. I just thought, well, this is, you know, it's like the self-importance kind of type. And then I realized, you know what, if you say your name here, it's like a call to arms to anybody. If you're looking at the bottom of this picture to see who did this, and you see your name here, it's like, yep, come on, come do something. You can like write, you can paint, you can play in a band, make clothes, dance, like something. So that's why I stuck with that. I thought that was,
yeah, that's good.
Like go start your own band, same sort of thing. So
what was that show you did where you handed your guitar to someone in the audience at the end?
I'm always doing that. I don't know what.
I think it was the time you wrote for Pearl Jam. It was a big show. You wrote for Pearl Jam, I think.
Oh, Pearl Jam. What
was that band you were in?
Monkey Wrench played at Wembley with Pearl Jam for 2 nights. And I just thought the whole thing was they were great. And they're super, super nice guys. And Jeff, now the bass player, uses a lot of his money to build skate parks on Indian reservations up in Montana and around, which is really, really cool, like Wounded Knee and all that. And so, but you know, the first, you know, you're 7 feet up. There's like a huge gap with like the big, huge bouncer guys standing there and stuff. So I jumped off the stage and just handed my guitar to whoever was in the front row and just was like, "You're at Wembley, play. This is great," you know, kind of celebrate kind of thing. And then I found out that Mark had jumped off and was kissing everybody on the front row, which I thought was pretty great. So, but yeah, I mean, I just, you know,
Yeah, you have that whole attitude. The book ends with a quote from Ornette Coleman. There's a painting, and even though there's not a chapter on Ornette Coleman in the book, I was telling the art director from TCU, I said, here's an excuse to run this really great painting, because it really emphasizes Tim's outlook, which is the worst thing you can do is categorize music or put things in boxes. And, I thought that was a good way to do it. I was looking, when we started the book, the deal was we got 12 color pages. So I told Tim, we got 12 paintings we can do. And then we turned in the paintings, and then they said, oh, the whole book's color. And I went, what? You didn't tell me that before. He said, yeah, well, it's cheap enough. It's just as cheap to do the whole book in color. And so we scrambled for about a month. And I added all these things. I said, Tim, can you do something on this or that? And he came through on every single one of them. There wasn't a single one that he went, nah, I've already turned my stuff in. And we ended up with like maybe 17 or 18 pages of color. And then also we used a lot of his black and white sketches throughout, which I think really breaks up the copy really nicely without having, a big full page color all the way through. Yeah. So it was kind of a happy accident that it turned out that way.
That looks great. So I'm going to tie that with one of the quotes that's on page 33, and it's about Arizona drains. Mm-hmm. And it says, so that's how it ended, happily for Arizona drains, if her beliefs were true. And here's how it started. A poor, scared little blind girl from North Texas sat at a piano in Austin in 1896 and knew she'd never be lonely again. So a whole lot of that, jumping out in the audience and handing them the guitar and putting your name on something or kissing them, is all about the friendships and the fellowship that we get through the music and the performances that are a little bit different than listening to them on a recording at home alone these days. So I just really appreciate that.
That's the thing about it too. When we had this whole lockdown, self-isolation, I really felt envious of musicians. I mean, if you have that's the thing about, if you're by yourself and you have an instrument and you know how to play it, you're never alone. Really, you always
any sort of self-expression, because you can sit and sew. You can, I've been painting all kinds of stuff and working around. I'm trying to figure out now how to make photos with coffee.
So I've got another question for you, because I find that this is the theme that runs through the book, and one is on right at the beginning on page 3, and it says we're talking about Washington Phillips, and it says, this is the story of the children of former slaves who found the God-given grace within themselves to make music that was as much about liberation as it was about faith. They were of the earth and formed from the injustice of the time, and yet there's a spiritual purity in their music that comes from a place we dream about. And you kind of go back to the spiritual connection through music over and over again when you talk about different people. And it's kind of the transcendence that music gets you through the immediacy of the suffering and struggles we all have as humans in whatever setting, in whatever time, in whatever place. And I was just wondering, it's not that you were indirect about it, Michael, but I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to what your experience is from your point of view of surveying all of these musicians about the reasons why the musicians do it and why we feel it on the other side.
Well, I'm not a musician. I've never even tried to be a musician. And so I always approach it from a listener standpoint. Even when I was a music critic, I never liked being a music critic. I never thought of myself that way. I thought of myself as a fan who had a job writing about music. So I try to get into the motivation, not so much through music, but when I do see people play music up close, I see their hands move, I see them play. It blows me away. But I don't think about that when I'm writing. I'm thinking about like the first quote you mentioned with Arizona Blind Willie Johnson and Washington Phillips. Originally, this book was supposed to be just on them. I pitched it as a book on those three 1920s gospel performers. And I got University of Tennessee really wanted it. and I was working for them to do it, and I ended up with like 25,000 words. That was it. That's as far as I could extend it. I couldn't, a book's got to be like 70,000 words. So I had like 1/3 of a book worth. And so while I was trying to make it longer, bigger, I went into all sorts of thoughts that it may seem like padding, later. A lot of stuff I took out, but I was really trying to, trying to get into their heads. Like I went to Washington Phillips's farm, where his cabin used to be, and I went there one time at night, even though it's real dangerous. There's people out there shooting guns all the time. But I wanted to see what he saw. I wanted to see the sky that he saw, and to try to get an idea. And sure enough, it was like if you're out in the country, how you see every star. The sky was so full of stars. I couldn't believe it. And I thought, well, that's maybe how he got the celestial sound. So I'm always looking for things like that. But it's not necessarily just where they put their fingers, but where their minds are at. And but getting back to the way the book started out, it was going to be called "Going to See the King." And it was going to be about the three people, and then it wasn't long enough. Then I was working on this other thing with Amos Milburn and Charles Brown. Amos Milburn's my favorite piano player, rock and roll piano player. He's the best, really. He was the first. Him and Moon Mullican, also from Houston, were the first two great piano players of rock and roll. And so I started doing research on Amos Milburn, and I found out that him and Charles Brown, who's another great piano player from the 40s, Houston, that they actually were a couple. They were a romantic couple. They were gay and they lived together. And this is like in the 50s. And so then I thought, well, this could be a book in itself. I could really have a whole book about, these two amazing musicians. Same thing though. I ended up getting like maybe 15,000 words. That's it. And so I thought, like, well, I got these two half books. How could I put them together? Like, in a what's the theme I can get that I can put these together and it'll make sense. And that's where I got the Ghost Notes idea, and then I started thinking, like, well, you have all this other research you've done. You've done research on Rocky Erickson. When Rocky had his comeback, which is really the greatest comeback in the history of rock and roll, I did a front page story on him for the Statesman, and I did another story on when he teamed with Ockerville River, and I did 3 stories on Rocky, and so I decided to put them all together. And my whole idea, though, in my mind was that it's got to have this Ghost Notes, the spirits, the pioneering spirits. That's why the spirits and Ghost Notes, and that I try to put that as a thread throughout the book. Whenever I had an excuse to talk about something spiritual or something like that, that's what I would use. I would throw that in there as sort of a thread. And I noticed that when I did get the book back and I started kind of rereading it, well, I had to reread it anyway because I didn't have an editor. I was my own editor. And so I had to, once the book was in galleys, I had to really read it through. And there was stuff that when I was reading, I was going, oh, that's kind of clever the way I did that. I didn't realize it at the time that I was doing that, but it really does thematically link together. Even though they seem like they don't, like the DOC, what's he got to do with Sonny Curtis? But they're all part of musicians, Texas musicians who didn't care what had been done before them. They were going to do their own thing, and they were going to make their own magic. And that's kind of what the criteria I looked on for who I'd write about. Who are the innovators?
Well, I think that's a wonderful place to end on. Anybody else got any thoughts, questions, or sayonaras?
Where do we buy your books?
Well, there's I think Amazon's got them now, but there's a thing called bookshop.com, which is the independent bookseller. It's a good way to buy it online. And also, me and Tim we signed some copies that we mail out, because when the book first came out, of course, it was right when the whole coronavirus thing happened. The warehouses are closed. Amazon did not carry books for a month because they have to have their warehouses for what people are buying for during the pandemic. So we started selling books out through the mail, and we sold a bunch of them. And people really like having the signature, especially from an artist. If you have an artist that signs a book, they become really valuable. So we sign and we put them out. And if people want to get like that, you can PayPal me $37, which includes shipping. And it's Michael Corcoran, it's my name, 55 at gmail.com. So the way the name is on the screen there, Michael Corcoran 55 at gmail.com. And the book is $32.50 list price. And because like Jennifer was saying, it's a really big, heavy book. It's really well done. And that's just how much they cost. So the $37, that includes shipping and envelopes and also the PayPal fee. So we're all good?
We're all good.
Well, I agree with you too. I just want to make a comment, but I listen to the words and I listen to the lyrics and the music, and you're just like what you do, and I agree with Brother too on that. I guess it's everything, and we're all different. So what we look at what we listen to and how we interpret it, So
yeah,
I really appreciate the comments from both you guys and Jennifer. So
my line about lyrics has always been, lyrics just keep a song from being an instrumental. That's pretty much what I think about it. It's like
Damn, I thought she jumped the fence. What up, cat dog?
who's knocking on the door?
All
All right, you guys. Well, thanks a lot.
Right,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Jennifer.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you,
Thanks,
Tim.
Jennifer, for doing that. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
That was
See
great.
ya.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye, bye. I'm going to see the king.